Thank you so much for having me here today. Last time I was here, I got a chance to do a TEDx, and that was awesome. And I wanted to talk about this topic, about getting lucky, because I think for all of you, you're all so worried and stressed out about everyday life, and how do you possibly control it? But let me tell you, I'm 64 years old, and I can tell you right now, the only thing you have, wow, sounds like the voice of God. The only thing that you have control over is your effort. The only thing you have control over is giving your best every day. Everything else is totally out of your control. And so you shouldn't stress too much about what's going to happen, because you don't know who you're going to meet for life. You don't know what your next job is going to be. You don't know anything. All you know how to do is learn as much as you can and do the best you can. So I wanted to talk about this topic about how to get lucky, how to control your own destiny. And I think all of us want to be able to control our own destiny, whatever that may be, as opposed to letting other people dictate to us. So how do we control our own destiny? And I can tell you that throughout my life, all the good things have happened, including Vietnam. And I can tell you my story about getting here to Vietnam, which is my favorite country. My kids are afraid I'm never going to move back to the United States, because I've had such an amazing experience here in Vietnam, and you're very lucky. This is one of the best countries you can possibly live in, and I've been to 13 countries in Asia. Vietnam is still my favorite country to be in. So I can tell you this, that over almost 2.5 years ago, I had decided that I wanted to go to speak in Asia. I wanted to go teach entrepreneurship or innovation or something, but I wanted to go to Asia. So I looked at a website called highereducation.com, and I saw on the site that Vietnam had started a brand new university called Vinh University, and they were looking for a senior lecturer of entrepreneurship. And that school had a partnership between Cornell and the school I taught at, University of Pennsylvania. I taught at the Wharton School. Now, what were the chances at the time that I looked that there would be an opening for somebody with a master's degree, not a PhD, to teach entrepreneurship at an English-speaking school in Vietnam? So I called them and I said, would you be interested in having me come there and teach? Let me send you my resume. 15 minutes later, they contacted me back and said, oh, we would definitely be interested in interviewing you. From the time they interviewed me in the fall of 2022 to the time I actually moved here in May of 2023, I wasn't sure that I would actually get here. But luck would have it that Vinh University followed up with me, offered me a contract. I started teaching actually in March online, and then I moved here in May of 2023. And that was the best experience ever. And since I've been here, many, many great things have happened. So when you are thinking about your own future and your own destiny, think about that if you don't put yourself out there and say yes to everything that's good, not things that could get you in trouble, but everything that is good, then you're going to find out that you're going to get much further along. You're going to be much happier. You're going to meet amazing people. I've had the best time ever by working with all my colleagues, having dinner with them, and meeting all of you, the team that brought me here today. We had lunch when we talked about this particular event, how to get lucky. So in my career, I've been so fortunate because when I graduated high school, if I had applied to Vinh University, they wouldn't even let me through the gates. My college board score was so low that my father wrote to the college board people and asked them where the other half of the score was, because I only scored 725 out of 1,600 in my college boards. And I took it again, and I scored the same amount. And my guidance counselor in high school said, you're not college material. You're not going to make it through college. But not only did I make it through college and got a master's degree, but I taught the smartest people in the world when I taught in the executive MBA program for 10 years at Wharton. And now I teach the very brightest kids at Vin University, and I'm very, very fortunate for that. Okay. So, you see me on the cover of this international magazine called Profit Magazine. How did I end up getting on the cover of this magazine? Well, I started the world's first formally organized investor angel network. That means bringing together wealthy people with entrepreneurs. In 1989, I came up with this idea, and in 1990, I launched this idea. And nobody had ever brought rich people together with entrepreneurs. In fact, they thought it was a crazy idea because why would rich people want to risk money investing in pure startup companies? But during that time is when Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were starting up, and people wanted to get access to great companies and make great fortunes with it. So I started this, and at age 33, that's how old I am there, I ended up on the cover of this magazine. I get lots of jokes about, man, you don't look that way anymore, or that I look like a certain different type of person. But that magazine opened up doors for me. From being on the cover of that, I got to speak as a keynote speaker for the Wall Street Journal, the top business paper in the world, and I was a keynote at their annual conference. And that was an amazing experience. And also from this is that you have to realize that you have to be at the right place at the right time. And you have no control over that. That's why if you put yourself out there, you attend events like this. Now, I'm going to meet some of you after my speech, and I'm going to get to make a lot of new friends. And some of you are going to contact me and say, oh, I have this great business idea. And I'm going to listen to your idea. I'm going to say, hey, I know somebody that I should connect you with, and that could help you get to the next step. The friends I've made here, it's been amazing. And I've met all kinds of people. Since I've been here in Vietnam, because I go out and speak at a lot of places, I have gotten invited to different ambassadors' homes for different parties, and I've gotten to meet 13 ambassadors. I had not met any ambassadors prior to my coming to Vietnam, but now I've met 13 ambassadors since I've been here. So here are my other personal stories. Penn State University was looking for somebody to start a business incubator. Penn State's one of the biggest universities in the United States. And I had started something like that for a small business in the town that I grew up in. And so I applied to Penn State. Now, I didn't have a master's degree. I only had an undergraduate degree. But I had 3 newspaper stories that were written about me from starting these other businesses. And I sent that over. And my future boss at Penn State, Dr. Larry Cody, saw my resume, saw I didn't have a master's degree, and threw it on the trash pile. His wife walks in and sees my resume, picks it up and said, Larry, you should interview this guy. I've seen what he could do. If she did not walk in at that time, I would not be on this stage. But because she walked in and suggested he interview me, I got to get interviewed by him, and I gave him my vision of what I thought this business incubator should be, and he hired me. And I stayed there for 3.5 years, and I grew it from 1 company to 63 companies. I started the concept of the virtual incubator, where you could access all the services without actually being there. And I was in many different magazines for creating the first diverse incubator, where we had women and minorities all in one incubator, and that had not been done before. And so I got a lot of great visibility. So my job at the Wharton School of Business, a friend of mine had taken a sabbatical from her teaching job, and she saw that Wharton was looking for somebody to be executive director of their consulting practice. And she applied for that job, got that job. And while she was on that job, she was told by her boss, hey, one of our professors, his wife had a child 6 weeks prematurely. and we need to have somebody to go to Peru. Do you know anybody who would be willing to go to Peru? Well, I was at that time married to somebody from Panama. I had a home in Panama. And I said, and she contacted me and said, would you be interested in working for the Wharton School with executive MBAs and going to Peru? I go, of course, yes, who wouldn't want to go to Peru? Why say no to that? Well, it's probably a one-off gig. You just do it once, that's it. No, it'd be awesome. I'll definitely do it. Well, I took that job, and it worked out so well that they asked me to stay on, and eventually I became head of all of Latin America for this group. And that kid who was born 6 weeks premature, that kid became my business partner 23 years later in a metaverse venture. What are the chances of something like that happening? I didn't plan it, I didn't pick it, I had no idea about this opportunity my friend would have in Peru. If that guy's son isn't born 6 weeks premature, again, I'm not standing here because I never would have worked for the Wharton School, but that happened. This third one here is Eastern Technology Council. When I started the Penn State Technology Development Center, and I grew it to one company to 63 companies in 3.5 years, I decided I wanted another new challenge. And I let people know in the governor's office and other places that I'm looking to do something new. So the governor's people contacted me and said, hey, we're looking to start a trade association for technology companies. Would you be interested in interviewing for that? And I said, oh, absolutely. That sounds like an interesting job. So I interviewed for it, but I came in second. And the guy who came in first took the job, but didn't like the board, and he quit after 1 week. And so they came back to me and said, would you be interested in taking this job? I go, absolutely. That sounds a great opportunity. I didn't say, oh, you didn't pick me, I don't want to do it. Or I want to go look at something else. I thought this was a great opportunity. And because I took that opportunity, I got to start a venture fund. I started this angel group, and I grew it from the 6 founding board members to 1,200 corporations, finished my master's degree, and so I spent 5 years with these guys doing that. But if I didn't go and put myself out there, I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. And because I worked for the Eastern Technology Council and started this private investors group, and I wrote my first of 6 books while I was working for them, I wouldn't again be here talking to all of you today, because all of these things build on top of each other. All the things that you put yourself out there and come to events like this, network with people, all build on top of each other to give you more opportunity. So here are 4 pictures. The first picture is with me. I'm with Dr. Mylan Lee, who is the founding president of Vinh University. And she has given me an Excellence in Teaching Award. There were only 8 awards given that year, and I got one of those awards. Why that is meaningful to me is because I've been teaching for 23 years, and I've never won an Excellence in Teaching Award. In America, it's unusual to have these kinds of awards. Here, you guys celebrate everything here, which is really nice. And so I got one of those 8 awards. And I have to say, I've won 25 awards in my life, but that's the most meaningful because I love teaching. I love interacting with the students, and I love helping them get the most out of their talent. This one is my TEDx talk that I mentioned to you that I was here and got to do it. And I have to tell you, I can't thank the group enough for picking me to be a TEDx speaker, because that was like being a rock star. I mean, it was amazing because everybody wanted to take their picture with you. Everybody enjoyed it. And now I have almost 11,000 people who have viewed my TEDx talk. So that's been a great experience. This book, Small Business Turnaround, I mentioned this is one of my 6 books. Now, the first book I wrote was called Power Networking, How to Network for Contacts. And that book did quite well, and I was featured in magazines for that. But I had this idea to write the very first book ever written on how to turn around the small business. And my publisher, a major publisher in the United States, said, who would want to buy a book on how to turn around a small business? We're not interested in that. So I sent my proposal to 47 business book publishers, and they all turned me down. And I said to them, listen, you don't have to pay me in advance, and I will even cover your losses. I so believed in this book that I told them that whatever money they would lose, I would pay for it. So they would be out of pocket, no money whatsoever. Still, all 47 turned me down. But my publisher said, I know a guy who used to work here. He had a small business that failed. I think he could see the value in this book. So she sent my proposal to him. He didn't call me back. He sent me a letter with a contract and a check and said, I want this book. That book was named one of the 30 best business books in the world in 2000. One of the top 30 business books in the world by Executive Book Summaries. So what's the story behind that? What if I had given up after my publisher said no? What if I had given up when the 47 different publishers all said no? Where would I be? So again, I put myself out there, and that book, because I got that book published, I got a contract for 4 more books from that same publisher, and I ended up writing a total of 6 books. That picture here, how old do you think I am in that picture? Anybody want to guess how old I am? Can you see? Let me move this. How old do you think I am in this picture?
35.
I was 26 years old. 26 years old. And so Whiz Kid heads up Business Incubator. This is when I started Penn State's Technology Development Center. And if my boss had not called me and said, I want you to go and start this center, all of these other amazing things wouldn't happen. But again, I had no idea that that would happen. I only saw a newspaper ad, applied to it, and that happened. But I can tell you this, I've applied to things that didn't happen. I had applied, and this was interesting, the major paper in Philadelphia called the Philadelphia Inquirer was looking for somebody to run new ventures for them. And they said, we want somebody with an MBA, somebody with a journalism background, someone with a business startup background. And so they listed all these things. So I thought, I'm perfect for this job. I applied to them, and I got a rejection, a letter that said, sorry, you're not a good fit for this job. Now, did I let that go? No. I sent a fax. We used faxes back then because email wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And I wrote to the publisher and I said, hey, I check all the boxes here. How come I'm not getting interviewed? So he called me back and said, I think they didn't believe that you were real. Like, who would have all the boxes checked? So he said, why don't you come in and interview? So I went through 30 interviews with 30 different people over the course of 3 months. And I thought, oh, I have a great shot at this. At the end, the chief marketing officer of the company that owned the Inquirer, which was one of the biggest newspaper chains in the world, Knight Ridder, the guy walks into the room and he tells me, you're not getting this job. I said, how do you know that? He said, I know it because I talked to the publisher and he doesn't want you working here. I said, that's the guy who invited me in. He said, he doesn't want you working here because you don't like his business idea. Turns out he had an idea that when they asked me what I thought about, I thought it was a really bad idea. And it turned out I was right. Years later, they lost a lot of money in this particular idea. But you could say that was unlucky, but you can't get everything that you want in life. And you win way more than you'll lose. You'll get way more benefits because you put yourself out there, that you're taking risks, that you go and try new things. I've started 30 different companies. I've had enormous number of failures, and we'll talk about that. Why do you feel luck is out of your reach? Well, let me tell you that a lot of you probably think, I never get lucky. Nothing ever falls right. I never get the right boyfriend. I never get the right girlfriend. I never get the right job. nothing falls right for me. What you have to realize is that at some point, the odds get better and better for you because you keep putting yourself out there. If you only take a few chances, you're right, you're not going to get lucky. I have a friend of mine that when he hasn't gone on a date in like 6 years, and he went out on a couple dates and they didn't turn out well, and he goes, oh, I've given up. I said, how do you know that the next person isn't going to be an amazing person? I met somebody in a first weekend I was somewhere, and that person turned out to be a girlfriend that we were together for quite a long time. It wouldn't happen if you don't put yourself out there. So in this particular case, here's how I got lucky and things didn't work out quite the way I hoped. I was speaking in Guatemala. They flew me in, at the major bank there, flew me in to talk about entrepreneurship with their wealthiest clients. So I'm flying there and I look at an article, and the article said that, I flew out there and I met somebody who said, every week I buy up all the invoices of people who sell for Coca-Cola, who sell to Coca-Cola of Guatemala, and I make 250,000 USD working 1 day a week. I thought, how cool would that be to work 1 day a week and make $250,000? And so I thought, well, what if I scaled that business up and I made it a much bigger opportunity? So I came back to the States, wrote up a plan, showed it to the CEO of a bank that I had as a consulting client, and she goes, I love this idea. You're going to need at least $1 billion to start this idea. So I ended up raising $3.2 billion for this idea. And I thought I was going to have my own private jet, that I was going to have homes around the world. I was going to be extraordinarily wealthy. Well, what happened? In the fall of 2007, I raised the money, we got it launched, and in 2008, your parents will remember this, 2008, the market crashed. Everything went bad at one time, and my three major investors were Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and Merrill Lynch, three of the biggest money management finance firms in the world. And unfortunately, those three were the only three on Wall Street that went bankrupt. All three went bankrupt. They took all $3.2 billion back because they had to pay it to their creditors, and that business went under. I went from thinking I'm going to be extraordinarily rich to not having anything. And on top of that, because the market crashed, my marketing consultancy, my clients canceled their contracts. So I had no money coming in whatsoever. Now, because I'm an entrepreneur, I put a lot of money away, and I had cash put away for 2 years, figuring in 2 years I can restart myself all over again. I had another venture that I had put together where I was flying to Mexico, again to teach entrepreneurship, and I saw in Forbes magazine that if you had a business bank account in the United States and you put the money in at 9 o'clock and somebody steals it at 9:01, the bank has no liability for that. I thought, wow, I better find out that's true. So I got off the plane, called a banker back in the States, found out it was true, went looking for insurance, couldn't find insurance, and decided I'm going to write a plan to start the very first insurance product to insure small business bank accounts against cyber theft. So I raised around $150 million, and I got great support from a big insurance company. Unfortunately, and I was in the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Forbes, all these publications, and unfortunately, nobody wanted that product. Nobody was buying that particular product. And so within a year, we ended up closing that down. And we found that when we were figuring out if this was a good idea or not, we did the wrong survey. We asked the wrong questions. We didn't ask people if they thought that their bank account could get hacked. We just asked them if they felt cybersecurity was a big issue. And so did the insurance company. So that business too didn't make it. So the big question is, how do you increase your luck? First of all, you start with yourself. I exercise every morning. I get up at 5:30 a.m. 7 days a week. I read for 45 minutes, I go ride my bike for 45 minutes, and I lift weights every other day, and I walk 10,000 steps every day. And every night before I go to sleep, I walk for a half an hour. So being disciplined and being in shape. Think about it, I'm 64 years old, but I feel like I'm 35 years old because I've been disciplined to do that. Reading. I have two podcasts, one called The Best Business Minds, where I've interviewed about 350 authors, some of the best and smartest people in the world. Quite a few of them were billionaires. And the one thing I found in common with successful people is they're big readers, and they like to read biographies, books by futurists, and other great thinkers. So they're constantly reading to improve their own knowledge and skill set. Then about going on dates. I like to make new friends, so if I'm in between girlfriends, I go out with as many different people as possible because you don't know who you're going to connect with, but I also go out with those people because I make all these new friends. And some of the people I've gone on dates have become lifelong friends, so you don't know who you're going to have chemistry with. And it's unplanned. You can see somebody and they go, oh my God, they're so good looking. You meet them, no chemistry. Somebody else is not quite as good looking and you got crazy chemistry. You don't know how that's going to go and work. Befriend lucky people. What does that mean? What that means is, if you've got friends that are putting themselves out there all the time, you should too. And you, by being connected with them, are also going to get lucky. I got a job with National University of Singapore because I got that job with Wharton. But a friend of mine was at Wharton and he said, hey, National University of Singapore needs more Wharton professors to work with them. Because of him, I got this introduction, and I ended up working for the National University of Singapore for 7 years. Again, if you're around people who put themselves out there and are giving the best that they can give, you're going to get lucky with them. If you go with people that just sit on the couch and watch TV all day, or don't try to improve themselves on an ongoing basis, it's not going to work out. When you find a mate that you want to spend your life with, you want to find someone who also is driven to be the best they can be for you, for themselves, and for your family. More ways to create opportunity. Develop new skills. I'm constantly learning new things. I learn things from you. I work with two students at Vinh University who created a great AI company. They make a lot of money. And they taught me about AI. I didn't really know much about AI. Nobody did 2 years ago, but now we all do. But I always keep in mind that no matter what my age is and what the people I'm dealing with, I can always learn from other people. So I don't think of myself as knowing everything. I'm experienced at learning how to learn new things. Attend events. I'm always networking. I have over 12,000 contacts in my LinkedIn. I've met over 1,000 people here. I Zalo with people, Facebook with people. I'm always coming and meeting new people all the time. I join co-working spaces because you meet new people there. If you just stay in your house and never come out, you can't meet anybody. It's going to change your life. You play sports, you don't know, or join a club. Any of those people could be people that open doors for you to greater opportunities. I'm all about saying yes to everything. I love speaking at events like this because, again, I get to meet new people and be able to share my message with them, because I didn't have the best grades. I didn't go to a top-tier school like Vinh University. I went to West Virginia University. I didn't even know West Virginia was a state when I went there. But they were the only school that accepted me, and I rolled with it, and it turned out to be a great thing. I started a podcast, My Best Business Minds podcast. It's won 6 international awards. I started that podcast in the beginning of the pandemic because I thought it would be a way to stay connected with people. I didn't have to do that. When I came here, I started another podcast called Asian Founders and Funders. It's won 4 international awards as a way to get to meet more of your best entrepreneurs and investors. Again, I don't have to do any of those things, but I do. And in the school, I'm known as the guy who says yes to everything. They contacted me today. Would you be willing to speak to this group of high school students next week? Yes. I never say no. Teaching, that's definitely opened up everything. Travel to new places. Why do you like to travel? Because you see new things. It gives you ideas, things you never considered before. I have a friend who's barely done any traveling, and his world is closed off. Don't waste your money on stupid things. Save all your money for travel, and don't be partnered with somebody who doesn't like travel. If they go, travel's not really for me, drop them. Only share your life with people who have intellectual curiosity, that they want to try new things. 7 habits of lucky people, they're adaptable. I adapt to any situation whatsoever. I don't worry about that I'm in a new environment. You got to be resilient because life is hard. It doesn't get easy. In the United States, there have been a whole generation of trying to give kids an award just for trying. That's not very helpful, because all of you know that life is hard. You've seen your parents struggle, and the earlier you get used to adapting and overcoming difficult situations, the better off you'll be. And if you keep a positive attitude, you'll overcome anything. Reading, as I mentioned, it's really important. Giving best effort. Being curious. I love to talk to people and find out things about them. I learn from people. Embrace failure. Nobody likes to fail. I mean, they always say, oh, failure makes you stronger. But the reality is that failure is the only thing that teaches you something new. Success, nobody knows why you're successful. People who are successful, if they haven't experienced failure, and everybody does, they really have no idea why they were successful. It just happened to work out that way. Why is Taylor Swift's music loved on a global basis? There's tons of singers. Nobody knows why, when her words come out of her mouth, that people like what they're hearing. There are plenty of great mystery book writers, but why are only a certain few loved all over? Like the Harry Potter books. I hated those books. My kids love the movies, but I couldn't read those books. But yet, she's making money every minute of the day for the past 20 years, all 24 hours a day, and she's a multi-billionaire from it. But for some reason, many of you connected with the Harry Potter books and love those books. And listening to experts and podcasts and mentors, get a mentor, listen to their stories, hear what they talk, share, find mentors that have no problem telling you about the failures that they've had, because that's real, that's authentic, and you want to be around authentic people. Lastly, when to say yes when you're young, before family responsibilities. Now's the time to take these risks. It makes it harder. Not that you shouldn't, but it makes it harder when you have a family, a mortgage, kids going to school, and now you feel like, hey, I can't afford to fail or everything falls through. Before your financial obligations, that's the time. And if you lose everything, you have plenty of years to rebuild back up. So don't worry about that. And especially, don't be afraid of changing jobs and taking on new responsibilities. And when you go to an employer, and the employer says, who would like to take on this job? And everybody looks the other way, like, damn, I'm not taking on that job because I could fail. You step forward and say, let me have it. Because there's no risk. If it's something that everybody else is dodging, it means that all you can do is shine if it takes off. If it doesn't, then your boss gives you credit for stepping up and taking that responsibility on. My conclusion here is, hey, just for showing up, that's me, just the guy who shows up, not any smarter than any of you, 25 awards, 13 countries visited in Vietnam, and I've been very lucky. I get to speak to all of you today and tell my story. And I thank the forming group of this for inviting me to tell you my story. And I hope that you can see, I wasn't the guy who went to Harvard. I wasn't the guy with the great SAT scores. I didn't come from a rich family. None of those things. The only thing I did was put myself out there. That was it. Thank you so much.